Hey everyone, it's Nathan Orenstein with the No Show's 2020 Halloween special. Last year we took a look at the films in the Saw franchise, and this year we're going to be doing Alien. Alien is one of the most legendary and highly regarded horror franchises of all time, and it's still going relatively strong over 40 years later. It was created by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, along with the now iconic Alien designs from H.R. Giger, and it's responsible for skyrocketing Sigourney Weaver into superstardom, as well as kickstarting the now monumental career of Ridley Scott. The Alien franchise as a whole is incredibly important for a vast number of reasons, but today I'm just going to be looking at how good each movie is and how it ranks within the series as a whole, spoiler free of course. In release order, the movies I'm going to be covering are Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant, and in chronological order it goes Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. Sorry for all you fans of Alien vs. Predator and Alien vs. Predator Requiem. And I also apologize for some perhaps controversial opinions that are going to be shared in this video. Anyway, let's get started with number 6. You guys know David Fincher, right? He's the guy responsible for making all those really good movies of the past 3 decades. Like this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And that's not even all the good movies he's made in the past 30 years. Well, did you know his first movie was Alien 3? And that the experience of working on it and the critical reception was so bad that he swore off Hollywood for years before making 7? Well, if you didn't, now you know. And all fun facts aside, I absolutely hate Alien 3. And in fact, I think it's the one Alien movie in the entire franchise that just should be avoided at all costs. There's no reason to watch it. Lieutenant Ellen Ripley, Sigourney Weaver's iconic character, crash lands on a prison planet filled with all religious, celibate male prisoners. And her ship was carrying an alien on it, so of course she and the rest of the prisoners have to survive. Do these details really matter at all? No. All that really matters is that she's surviving with a bunch of nameless guys that all look the same on this planet. There you go. That's the story. Character development is pretty much non-existent here, and I couldn't even tell you a single character's name besides Ellen Ripley. Speaking of Ripley, she's not even written well, and her character here does not feel like the same character from the previous 2 films. The movie as a whole is just so horrendously written that it gets frustrating by the end. The movie also tries to use CGI instead of live physical effects, and oh my god, it looks so bad. And this movie came out in the 90s, not even that long ago. And on top of that, it's a horror sci-fi action movie that's neither entertaining or scary. At the end of the day, that's really all that matters, and it fails to live up to either of those criteria. I really just don't have a single positive thing to say about this movie. There are some important narrative things that happen at the end of the movie, important in regard to the whole franchise, but you'd probably be better off just looking up a synopsis on Wikipedia or IMDb than actually watching the movie. It's that bad in my opinion. I truly hate Alien 3. Now that that's out of our system, let's move on to number 5. I hate to say it, I really do, but I'm just going to come out with it now. I think Prometheus is a bad movie. I know. I'm sorry. Let's at least start with the positives, though. Prometheus is without a doubt the best looking film in this series. I mean, this movie is gorgeous, and I don't really think you can make a sci-fi movie that looks much better than this. Also, Michael Fassbender is brilliant in this movie as the android David. His character is especially interesting, too. And I would actually go as far as say he's the only interesting character here. But I really do love this character and the performance. Besides that, I just don't think there's that much here. Prometheus is a prequel about a group of humans who are seeking out the origin of humanity. They end up finding this starship that leads them to this planet, and, well, it becomes a horror movie. But it's cool because we get to see kind of the origin of the xenomorphs and how and why they're in existence to begin with. It really is an interesting concept, but I think the execution is extremely flawed, and a lot of this comes down to just some absolutely terrible, unlikable characters. They're nearly all insufferable, and I feel like everyone's to blame. The writing, the acting, and the direction, they're all bad across the board, except for the aforementioned Michael Fassbender as David, but of course he's great in pretty much everything he's in. This was Ridley Scott's return to the franchise as director for his first movie since the original Alien. But I don't know, I just can't get behind it here. It's not all his fault though, because the writing also is just really underwhelming and generally bad. And a lot of the more exciting scenes, or scenes that should be exciting, just don't really hit that level that they kind of build them up to be. I will say that there are some truly genius horror sections here, some of the best in the franchise even. But overall, I just don't think this is a good movie. I will say that I do think it's worth watching purely as kind of a setup for the rest of the franchise, and especially the direct sequel, Alien Covenant, which we'll talk about later. But I don't know, I wouldn't expect too much from this one. It's a big case of style over substance for me. A lot of people seem to really like it though, so maybe I'm the odd one out. Anyway, let's move on to number 4. At number 4, I've got Alien Resurrection, a movie that is almost unanimously considered the worst in the franchise. Go figure. Do I think Alien Resurrection is a good movie? No. In fact, definitively no. But I don't think it's a bad movie either. It kind of rides this middle line. But I certainly think it's worth watching. It's directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, which is 100% a very strange choice to direct an Alien movie, but I think he brings a lot of fresh perspective to the series. If you're unfamiliar with Jeunet's work, he's most known for Amélie and Delicatessen, and his direction is very over the top, and he uses wonky camera angles to create this almost fantasy-like disorientation. The Alien franchise as a whole has always taken itself very seriously, and I think Alien Resurrection breaks that mold in a very interesting and kind of fun, exciting way. This is an over-the-top action sci-fi horror extravaganza. This thing reeks of the late 90s, but honestly, it works, in my opinion at least. We've got Ron Perlman, Winona Ryder, and of course Sigourney Weaver, and this movie is just so much fun. In terms of story, things are really messy, and the dialogue is stilted beyond belief, but it doesn't feel as frustrating as it did back in Alien 3. This feels more like a creative choice almost, whereas Alien 3 just felt like pure incompetence. I don't know, maybe that's just my interpretation of this film, but if you're looking for just a fun, campy sci-fi horror movie, this is a great option. Again, I'm not saying it's a good movie by any means, but it's certainly incredibly entertaining, and that's why it landed itself at number 4 on my list. Let's move on. Number 3 is the newest film in the franchise, Alien Covenant. People really seem to either love or hate this thing, and I honestly saw so much hate for this movie when it came out that I initially avoided it. But I think this is a good movie, and I had a really good time with it. Alien Covenant takes place essentially right after the events of Prometheus, and I'm not going to say anything more for fear of spoilers, but I will say that Alien Covenant takes Prometheus' foundation and builds on it really well. In fact, I would go as far as to say that this has the most interesting story out of the entire franchise. I know this isn't really a franchise too concerned with story, but I will say I really appreciated the focus here. And I think it does a lot to build on the overall philosophy of the series too. If we're comparing this to Prometheus and even the other films that I've mentioned so far, the characters are just improved, the setting is much better, and the horror elements work so much better here. I'll admit that Alien Covenant can feel a bit messy at times, based on writing and also visuals, but I don't think it's enough to detract from the experience as a whole. I really recommend this one, and I think it's one of the most entertaining films in the franchise, as well as the most interesting narrative-wise. Anyway, let's go to number 2. Oof, we got to the real heavy hitters, Alien and Aliens, which are both considered to be 2 of the greatest science fiction films in movie history. But for my money, I've got to pick Alien over Aliens. So for second place, let's talk about Aliens. Alien very well could have stood as a singular film, but of course that changed when Aliens came out 7 years later, this time helmed by James Cameron. Say what you will about James Cameron nowadays, but his streak of blockbusters in the 80s and 90s is kind of undeniable. Titanic slaps, but it's definitely obvious James Cameron's forte is science fiction, and Aliens came out 2 years after he directed The Terminator. Ellen Ripley finds herself returning to the planet from the original Alien, this time with a group of space marines. They were hired to go check out what was supposed to be a safe colony, but when they get there, it's very apparent that it's become overrun with aliens. While Alien is a very methodical and quiet horror film, Aliens really brings the heat with a lot more action and a lot more theatrics. This has James Cameron written all over it, but it works so well, as big of a shift as this is from the original film. The budget is bigger, the cast is bigger, and there are a lot more aliens. The movie moves fast, but also leaves plenty of room for character development and relationship building. Also, shout out to Bishop, played by Lance Henriksen, for being the best android in the Alien franchise. You can't tell me otherwise. Aliens is an awesome action movie, and it still holds on to some of that horror that made the original Alien so scary. I do think there are some problems with dialogue here, but that's really my only gripe in this otherwise masterpiece of a sci-fi movie. Alien is a perfect movie. I could talk about it for hours, but I'll try to keep it brief. The premise is simple. Spaceship gets distress signal. Spaceship checks out the signal on alien planet. Alien gets stuck to dude's face and he goes on the ship. Alien gets loose on the ship. Horror ensues. For a premise so simple, Alien really does everything it possibly could with it and perfects it. For one, the entire production design of Alien is flawless. The spaceship Nostromo is incredibly memorable. The alien planet is really weird and frightening, but also beautiful in a way. And of course, the costume design for the alien itself is H.R. Geiger's most lasting work to date. The soundtrack is also great too and works really well with the science fiction sound effects you'd come to expect for a film like this. But it's everything else too. The character development here is the most subtle of the entire franchise, yet you know enough about every single character in this film to really understand their motives and how they react. And the acting is great here too, with, of course, the standout being Sigourney Weaver, solidifying her as one of the greatest protagonists of all time. The pacing is flawless, never feeling fast really, but also never giving you a sense to breathe. And of course, the way the alien grows and wreaks havoc on the crew is claustrophobic horror perfection. I'm going to cut myself off there, but if you're a fan of sci-fi or horror at all, you have to watch Alien if you haven't already. There's a reason this movie is still talked about over 40 years later, and it's held up so well due to its use of practical effects over CGI. As good as Aliens is, there was no doubt in my mind that Alien was going to end up at the top spot in this list. Well, there you have it, my ranking of the Alien movies. If you liked the video, then feel free to like and subscribe if you're new. And if you've seen any of the Alien movies or want to provide a ranking of your own, I'd love to see that down in the comments below. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. Have a happy Halloween.